Hello there, my friends from A23. We're back for chapter 10 of The Littles and the Lost Children. So in chapter 9, we ended with Winky recognizing Smoke Mountain, but not really understanding how she could recognize it if she had never been up above Trash City. Now we know that Winky and Tip come from Smoke Mountain, but they don't remember that because they were babies when they got lost from their parents. So, we have a new guest reader today for chapter 10. This guest reader is the newest administrator at our school, and he has also visited our classroom a few times to tell some jokes, usually math related. Who could this be? Let's read chapter 10 and find out. Winky and Tip were back in the home for children. They had to answer a lot of questions. Their friends treated them like heroes. None of them had ever been above ground on top of the dump. There was a lot they wanted to know about up there. One question was, did you see any clouds? Tip said, clouds are just like you see in pictures, but they're higher up and rounder and bigger than anything. There were clouds on top of Smoke Mountain, Winky added. That's how high up it is. It was the most beautiful thing I saw on the trip. Winky couldn't stop thinking about the mountain. Later that day, she told Tip, I've seen it before. I know I've seen it before, but I just can't remember when. That's crazy, said Tip. How could you? I've been everywhere you've been and I've never seen it. Wanda, one of Winky's best friends, said, the two of you were outside Trash City when you were babies. Maybe you saw it then. Tip shook his head firmly. Nah, he said, I'd remember it. Besides, babies don't know anything. Everybody knows that. A few days later, Winky had a dream. In the dream, she and Tip were flying in the glider with the Littles. Winky looked up at Smoke Mountain and said, Isn't it the most beautiful thing you ever saw, Tip? When Winky looked down, she realized that she and Tip were no longer in the glider. Instead, they were flying on the back of a large black bird in the middle of a cloud. Ahead of them, also sitting on the bird's back, Winky saw a man and a woman. Their backs were turned. The mist of the cloud kept Winky from seeing who they were. All right, Mr. Gill, your turn.
Winky nudged Tip. Who's that? She whispered. Who's what? Replied Tip. He was looking right at them. I don't see anything. Those people right there, said Winky. Who are they? You're crazy, said Tip. There are no people. Then Winky shouted at the two misty figures. Who are you? She shouted again and again, Who are you? And each time she shouted, the man and woman appeared to become smaller and smaller. Finally, they disappeared completely from the back of the big black bird. At that, Winky woke up. The tiny girl had the exact same dream each night for 3 weeks. Every time the adults disappeared before she could find out who they were.
Thanks so much, Mr. Gill, for joining us for chapter 10. Winky told Wanda about the dreams. And the blackbird was just like the bird that Major Nick said killed our mother and father, she said. Only it wasn't terrible. I wasn't afraid of it at all. So here you can see Winky dreaming about the black bird, who we know is Sable. The next night, Winky had a different dream. This time, she and Tip were flying alone in the back of the big bird. The man and woman were nowhere to be seen. The bird flew higher and higher into the sky. It beat its strong wings and climbed toward the top of Smoke Mountain. Suddenly, the great bird's strength gave out. It began to circle slowly downward toward the big valley. Winky woke up. That dream was followed by another. This time, Winky and Tip and the bird almost made it to the top of the mountain, but a great wind arose and blew them away, and again, the blackbird's strength failed. It spun downward toward the valley. Winky awoke crying and wondered why. By now, most of the children in the home knew about Winky's dreams. Some of them, especially Winky, Wanda, and their girlfriends, talked a lot about what the dreams probably meant. Tip stood at the edge of the group listening. At one point, Wanda said, I think it means that you and Tip are going to take a trip to Smoke Mountain someday. Another girl, Bitsy, said, No, it really means this. The man and the woman are really your parents, right? And they were killed by a big bird, right? And they're in heaven. That's what Smoke Mountain is, heaven. You said yourself it was the most beautiful thing you ever saw. Now, continued Bitsy, the big bird is trying to take you to where your parents are, in heaven. Only it isn't strong enough to get you there, right? In other words, it wants to kill you, put you in heaven, but it can't. Everyone was leaning forward, listening. The reason it isn't strong enough to do it is, Bitsy pointed up, it's up there and you're down here. So, said Tip. So if you don't want to get killed and go to heaven with your parents, don't go up there again. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my entire life, said Tip. He began walking away. From over his shoulder, he said, dreams don't mean anything. They're just dreams, that's all. But for Winky, the dreams continued. The next was the worst of all. In the dream, the bird finally got Tip and her to the mountaintop. It flew toward a rock ledge. A tiny man and a tiny woman stood on the ledge. Winky saw they were yelling at them, beckoning them to land, but she heard nothing. Just as the bird was about to land, a huge yellow cat leapt upon the man and woman, swallowing them. Then it turned upon the bird and struck it with a paw. The great bird tumbled from the sky toward the big valley with Winky and Tip holding on for their lives. Winky woke up screaming. The next night, she had the same dream all over again. More children joined the group talking about Winky's dreams. Even Tip stayed around to listen. I was really scared, said Winky. It was so real. I'm afraid to go to sleep tonight. You had a nightmare, announced Wanda. They're terrible. Bitsy turned to Winky. If you know what to do, you can change the dream, she said. How? Asked Winky. If you know you're dreaming, you can stop the cat next time, Bitsy said. What do you mean? If you know you're in a dream, just yell at the cat. You're only a dream, go away, said Bitsy. Then the cat will go away, and you can find out who those people are, right? Wrong, said Tip. No one can stop a dream. Oh, yes, you can, said a girl, stepping forward from the crowd around Winky. If I'm in the middle of a dream I don't like, I close my eyes tightly and say, take me to another dream. And then I fall out of that dream and into the middle of another. That night, Winky found herself dreaming the same dream again, but this time it changed a little. When the bird flew toward the rock ledge, Winky didn't see the man and woman. The cat was there, snarling and spitting. It struck at the bird with its claws. Get out of the way, yelled Winky. Then the cat seemed to speak, although its mouth never opened. You go away or I'll eat you up for sure. Suddenly, somehow, Winky realized she was dreaming. She became determined. It's my dream, she shouted, closing her eyes tightly, and I command you to leave. The cat fell to the ground. The tiny man and tiny woman climbed out of its open mouth and stood up. Now Winky could see them clearly in the bright sunlight. As the great bird landed, Winky leapt from its back, shouting, Mother, Father, and ran to them. The tiny girl woke up from her dream, crying and laughing. She never felt more wonderful in her life. Now she knew her parents were alive. She knew it for sure. So, because of Winky's dreams, she is now convinced that her parents are definitely alive. Crazy. All right. Thank you again, Mr. Gill, for joining us this week. I'll see you guys on Monday for chapter 11. I'm really curious to see what happens next. Make sure you fill out the Google form assignment in our classroom. And I'll see you guys in Zoom real soon. Have a great weekend. Bye.